Done. And we're live. Hey,
let's go.
Let's
What's
go.
up, man?
Cheers, everyone. Today we're drinking PadSplit beer.
Got my green juice,
and PadSplit green juice.
Yogi in the studio here.
So let's have some fun, man. I'm super excited. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Cash Geeks Network. As you guys know, we bring the heat, we bring the pressure, we bring real estate investors, companies, services, anybody who's actually doing something in the real estate space. And I always love in-person studio podcasts and somebody here in our local market, right? And so today we have Big E.
Let's go.
Man,
dude, it's an honor to be here. Thank you seriously for the invite and just being able to share more about PadSplit, man. So I'm stoked, man. Thanks for having me out here.
Yeah, and you guys are I feel like you're Untapped.
Yeah.
So I'm part of a couple big mastermind groups. And I was at a mastermind group a week and a half ago in Austin, Texas. And it's a room. There was a room of 250 investors, all from all over the country. And we break off into small break rooms and talk about our challenges.
Right.
And so one person was talking about different ways of marketing their properties. And then they were talking about some Airbnbs.
Sure.
And they were in Orlando. And so they were like, we're probably going to convert some of our Airbnbs into PadSplits, which we're going to get into.
Absolutely.
But in the room, people were like, the hell is PadSplit? Right?
It
and
comes
so,
up so
like
often.
Here in Jacksonville, it's like, oh, PadSplit's everywhere.
Yeah.
And then other people in other markets are like, what the hell is PadSplit? I have no idea what PadSplit is. And then we were explaining it to the people in the room. They're like, dude, that's freaking genius. Like, are they in my market? And we're like, oh, look them up. They might not be there yet. So I just feel like you guys are untapped, which I think is awesome. So what exactly is PadSplit?
Yeah. And before I even get into that, just to introduce myself, my name's Emanuel E Premate. I go by E. I am the account executive here in Jacksonville for PadSplit. So to put simply, PadSplit is the nation's leading platform for shared housing, specifically for the workforce.
Got it.
And so we offer room rentals on a weekly basis. At a minimum, our members have to stay for 31 days. On average, we're seeing them stay for about 7 to 8 months. Just kind of depends on the location.
Got it.
We started out of Atlanta in 2018. And our founder, Atticus LeBlanc, he's been in affordable housing for the last 15 years. Studied real estate development at Yale, and has been this whole business was really built out of his passion and, working with his partners. And it's grown to where we are today with 130 employees globally, over 15,000 members. And now we're about to cross the 8,000 unit mark. When I last checked before I came in, we're about 7,918. And then when I say units, I want to be very clear here that we're not talking about properties. In PadSplit world, units means bedrooms.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and typically on average, we're seeing most of our PadSplit homes have anywhere from about 5 to 8, 9 bedrooms. Now we certainly have some operators who are operating 11, 12, 13, even, larger scale PadSplit operations. But, we are rapidly growing. We were just actually ranked by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the U.S. And this is 2 times in a row now. So that's how you know it's really good. Let's do it, man. Let's celebrate to that.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Dude, the founder has like an epic name.
Atticus LeBlanc. It sounds like a superhero.
Dude, that's like a villain in a Batman movie. Make all your money in PadSplit, and then you turn into a villain.
Yeah. Well, that's look, awesome. We're here. We're on a mission to do well, do good. So far from doing anything evil, man. It's actually like our tagline. So all about doing well for investors, helping, earn cash flow, but really doing good for the community as well. And we do that in many different ways, obviously with creating more affordable housing, through the room rentals that we do. But also it is more than just a room rental. So our members, they do get access to telemedicine services. They get access to like job placement services. We have a resource provider who can help them with that if they needed to find a new job. Also, a really big one is positive rent reporting. So as they're making their payments on time, they're actually building their credit as well. So those are just some of the benefits that kind of go unnoticed, but we want to highlight because it's a key differentiator. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
we've actually now had over 40 members who have stayed at a PadSplit and gone on to buy their own home.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, it is
Yeah.
definitely a feel good. But in terms of cash flow, for investors, it's great because I like to call it the PER, man. So you get that predictable, reoccurring, risk mitigated revenue.
Mm,
And it's predictable in that, you're going to get paid every month. We have a 90% occupancy rate nationwide. Here in Jacksonville right now, we're at about 78%. I just checked this
78%.
today. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so, and that is across all of Jacksonville. There's certainly some pockets that do better than others.
Yep.
But so it's predictable in that sense that you have a high occupancy rate.
Right.
It's reoccurring because they're paying on a weekly basis. They have to stay for at least 30 days. And on average, you're staying, much longer in kind of that medium term range, 6 to 8 months. And then risk mitigated because you're basically now turning that one property into multiple streams of income.
Right.
And it's not like an all or nothing approach. So my background comes from short-term rentals. Like that's where I come from. That's what I know. And I joined PadSplit back in May, and it has been just a huge growth journey. But when you look at long-term rentals and short-term rentals, it's an all or nothing approach. Either it's booked or it's not, or it's rented or it's not. With PadSplit, even if you have one room vacant, you still have all these other ones that are bringing in cash flow, helping you cover your expenses.
Right. That's awesome, man. And so I feel like that's what makes it super intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Is I can turn my one single family house into 5 streams of income.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is the income better than traditional rent, but shit, if 2 of them are down, I still got 3.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Bringing in.
Yep.
And if you look at the stats, right, 78%, that's awesome, because if your house, if you have one single family house and it's vacant, then that's 0%, right? But if you're still getting 78%, that's awesome.
And look, I will say there's always still going to be a place for long-term rentals and short-term rentals, especially when you look at the short-term rental space, some more of those higher end luxury properties. But, right now we're starting to see kind of this crunch in those short-term rentals that don't maybe have those amenities, aren't really extravagant. They're not experienced. I think when it comes to short-term rentals now, people are looking for that experience. And, for those who have those short-term rental properties, they're pretty much 3/4 of the way there because they already have the property. It's already furnished. Then it's really just a matter of working with an account executive like myself or anyone else on the PadSplit team to see how we can, convert some of that underutilized space into an additional room or bedrooms. So I always say, hey, if you're struggling as a short-term rental operator, let's see what we can do with PadSplit and see if the numbers work. And we have tons of free resources and tools on our website on padsplit.com. When you go on there, if you go into For Hosts, you create an account, there's a zip code map. So those familiar with short-term rentals have probably heard of AirDNA.
Yep.
To be able to run your numbers, look at analyze properties and look at comps. Well, we have something very similar to that, not as extensive, doesn't have as much data, but you can look at occupancy rates. You can look at how many PadSplits are currently active in that zip code. You can look at the average weekly rate. You can see how many properties are in the pipeline that are going to be going live. And we have this for all of our active core markets. So Jacksonville, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas. We're going to go live in Raleigh and Charlotte now. Baltimore is live. We just went live with Kansas City. Like, we are expanding. I mean, ever since I've joined, every single quarter we've had new markets that have been brought on board. So, it's growing. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need PadSplit, right? Everybody would be able to afford housing. But we live in a time now where people just don't have a choice. And you look at, if you go with a traditional rental, you need to pay your first month's rent. You need to pay your second month's rent. You need to pay your security deposit. Then you have all the upfront cost of putting up your utilities and then furnishing the place. Like, most people who are making 20, 30, 40, 50K, they don't have the savings to be able to do that. And actually, one last thing I want to make a point here on is we don't even require a security deposit. And like, you can't even get a storage unit without a security deposit. Yet here you are, you're able to get a PadSplit without a security deposit, have a place to live that's furnished, quality. You have all those additional benefits. Like, it's a game changer, man. It's an absolute game changer.
No, I love it. I love it. And so what is, you mentioned, if you're thinking about it, reach out to an account executive. So what exactly is your role as an account executive? What is your, I guess, your day-to-day look like, your responsibilities? why should somebody contact you?
Yeah, think of me as your guide through the journey in becoming a PadSplit host. So I can connect you with vendors who you may need throughout that journey, whether it be a licensed GC who we have a part of our vendor network, or a realtor if you're looking to acquire a property, a photographer, because we definitely want to make sure you have professional photos. That's what makes the difference in your listing. Lenders, insurance providers, whatever you may need throughout that process, I'm here to help connect you and guide you through that process. Now, as well as, evaluating the space itself. So whether that means doing a walkthrough, or maybe you send me a video of it, I'll take a look at it and make sure, we can create something that falls within our guidelines. And while we're on that topic of guidelines, when it comes to a room for PadSplit, you need at least 80 square feet. You need 2 points of egress, with one of those being to the outside of the home. So that can be either a window or a door. We do also require a smoke detector in every single room. And one that sometimes can be easily overlooked is the AC vent. So sometimes when you seal off a living room, maybe the AC vent's not on the outside of that room. Well, you may have to just run another, vent to that room. So those are some of the things.
Or call you before they put up that wall. So you can be like, no, dude, put the wall here.
Ideally, I spot it before the work is done, so there's no additional work that's needed. But that's where I help. And just providing the resources, we have this PadSplit operator's guide. So once you're in contact with me and we're working together, I can share that operator's guide with you, which is like a 32-page document that lists out everything you need to know from A to Z about, from the acquisition to furnishing to working with consultants, general licensed GCs, like everything you need to know, is in there.
So when should you get involved as far as an investor?
Sure.
They're looking to buy a house. They love PadSplit, or they keep hearing about it. When should they reach out to you? Is it like, hey, I have this house under contract? Or is it just, I'm thinking about the concept? Like when should you get involved?
So if you have capital ready to deploy, or if you already own rental properties, then let's connect.
Got it.
That would be a really good time. We do also have webinars that are going on for those who just want to learn a little bit more. If you go on our website on PadSplit.com events, we have these webinars a couple times a week where each of the account executive team will volunteer and we'll go ahead and provide some high-level overview. But if you're someone who's serious and has capital ready to deploy, has a property, or has a property, let's connect. Let's run some numbers for you. We do have an earnings calculator on our website as well that I can help run through it with you, and just see what your potential earnings will be. Because I will be honest with you, sometimes PadSplit is not the right answer.
Right.
It's not. And it's also very important to know when to say no. As great as much as I love it, as much as I rep PadSplit all the time, man, I got to know when to say no to an investor and let them know.
What would make it a no-go?
So a lot of the times it's a very high acquisition cost. Sometimes we'll see people who come in with like these $1 million properties or something where they have all these rooms, but I'm telling them, look, we service those in the workforce. The rooms are not going to go for more than $250 a night.
Right.
That's at the max. Most of the time on average, most are going to be around $150 to $200 in that range.
Got it.
And so that just doesn't make sense as a PadSplit.
Right. No.
So I think that acquisition cost is really key. I think it's important if you're looking at buying a property, you're looking at one that is distressed, that maybe needs a little bit of work. You can buy it at a good price. And if you're sending out deals, sign up for Cash Geeks, list of properties. Shout out to Cash Geeks. They're sending out great PadSplit deals. Make sure you sign up for them. But I say try to stay below $250K and, make sure that rehab cost isn't too high. So you're not blowing yourself, with a high PITI once you're in that long-term debt.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And so is it also a thing where you can't fit enough rooms like this? I guess the ROI isn't there. Like if you have 3 rooms and maybe that would make you the same as a long-term rental.
Yeah.
Would you say some of those are just stay away? So
because of the additional expenses that you're going to have between, covering the utilities, your maintenance and CapEx expenses are going to be a little bit higher. The PadSplit platform fee. So we charge 14.75% as part of all revenue collected. That's just how we run as a business. So because you have these additional costs, really if you're starting with a 3-bedroom, those first 2 additional that first room that you add, that fourth, is really just to cover your overhead. And then that fifth one is when you start making a profit and you start seeing that positive cash flow. The sweet spot is getting to those 6 to 8 bedrooms.
Right.
Once you get to 6 to 8, that's when you really start seeing the numbers work.
Got it. So is it more of a square footage thing?
Yeah, square footage.
Okay.
What I've seen is about 1,200 is that minimum. You want to avoid HOAs just because they're likely going to shut you down. Most HOAs don't allow co-living,
right.
So just stay out of it. But 1,200 is a good thing. Something to keep in mind as well as being close to areas of employment or like employers for those who are making between 20 to 55K. So think of Walmart supercenters, shopping plazas, Amazon fulfillment centers are really good too. We also recently, we've established a partnership with Tulsa Welding School. So a portion of their students are going to be coming to staying at a PadSplit that we have. Nice. And they're located in zip code 32216. And that's kind of that central part of Jacksonville. So 1-6 is a great area. 4-6 as well. 4-6 is actually one of our highest performing right now. Hell yeah. So we have only 5 active units there right now. So it's basically just one PadSplit home with 5 upcoming properties, but it's 100% occupancy and 209 average weekly rate. So I think a lot of the growth
is that raise?
What's that?
Is that raise? Are you allowed to say or no?
I think it might be.
Yeah. Because I think you showed me one in 4-6. I was like, damn,
that's raised, man.
Freaking 4-6. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
Big shout out to Ray Nunez. So he's the senior national account executive for PadSplit. Ray is an absolute baller, man. He just got married, him and Oriana. I saw the photos. He looked incredible. And, him and I, we met through Jack's RIA. So another shout out for Jack's RIA. Telling you, man, best $350 I've ever spent in my life.
100%.
It's so good. The people you connect with. I wouldn't
used to be here.
What's that? It used to be here? The meetups? No way.
The RIA was in my boiler room.
What? Yeah, we do have to have like a throwback party or something, man. Just bring it back to Cash Geeks.
I know, man. So we're talking about hot areas.
Yeah.
Right. What would you say? Because you're talking about like, make sure you keep certain things in mind, being close proximity to some grocery stores, public transportation. What are some other things that I guess will make your PadSplit better? And I guess what would make it better is more occupancy, right? So it's like close to work areas, close to public transportation.
Public transportation is a really big one. So we did a survey back in November of last year, and we surveyed all of our members at that time, which I think was roughly about 5,000 to 7,000, somewhere in that range during that time. And now we're at over 15,000. But during that survey, they said that only 45% have their own vehicle. The remaining 55 rely on public transportation.
Wow.
So that's really important to kind of keep in mind and make sure you're within walking distance. I'd say within about a mile of a public transportation spot. And something as well as then think about is parking. So you want to make sure that you can accommodate at least 50% of the rooms that you're going to have after it's a PadSplit for them for the vehicle. So if you have 8 bedrooms, you want to have at least 4 parking spots, and not to where they have to play like musical chairs with the cars to get out, but really like just easy in and out access for them to go. A couple things that hosts can do in order to improve the overall member experience. I think when it comes down to it, just like short-term rentals, it all comes down to the experience. And so whatever you can do to make that better, it means more consistent revenue for you, because then they're going to likely be staying there longer. So I'm personally a big fan of having mini fridges in the rooms. I think that's nice because we do require having those Wi-Fi locks on the doors. And so that way, they know that, hey, they're the only person who can access that room. The only one who has that code. Nobody's going to be taking their food, because that tends to be one of the major complaints that we get. And nice thing about PadSplit,
that's awesome, is that people stealing my food.
It happens, man. Bob's taking Sally's sandwich, man. It's like, come on, man. Why would you do that to Sally, dude?
That's awesome. Hell yeah. I was looking forward to that leftovers, dude. That's awesome. That's one of the top issues. I love that.
Yeah, but here's the great thing about it. So for those investors who think like, oh my God, I don't want to have to deal with this, the nice thing is we do the people management. So if there is a member-to-member issue, that's what we handle. We have a whole dedicated staff. 24 hours that's there, and they're resolving these issues as they come up. Now, if it's something that requires like a host intervention, we'll reach out, or to the property manager, we'll let them know. Say, for example, like it's a maintenance issue. We do have like a maintenance ticketing system.
Gotcha.
Within PadSplit that's when we would, ask the host to intervene. But
Right.
otherwise, we handle that. We do all the marketing as well. So in all of our core markets, we do paid advertising on Google plus social media. So think Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And that's how we drive demand to the rooms. That's how we're targeting those specifically making, between 20 to 55K. We do all the member screenings as well. So that means we're going to check to make sure that they haven't had a felony in the last 7 years. We do that criminal background check. We also then do an income verification. So just to make sure that they're making 2 times whatever the weekly rental rate is. And then we do an eviction report as well to ensure that they haven't had more than 1 eviction. We recently changed it. We used to have it to where if they had 2 evictions, we'd allow it. But in looking at the data, we saw that, those who had 2 evictions were more likely to cause issues. So now we've changed that to 1 eviction in the last 7 years. And we do also do a credit pull, but that's more so just to get data on the members. We don't even use that in part of our determining factor. Gotcha. But we do the member screenings, we do the member management as well. What's really cool, so we also now recently launched our member rating system. So other members can rate other members and hosts can rate members as well. And what's really nice from a host perspective is that you have this option where if a member's interested in booking your room, you can set a setting to where then you get a notification and you'll see a high-level overview of those checks that we had done. And then we also have this option like personality test that they can take. You can see if they're an introvert, extrovert. You can see if they're a night owl or an early bird. Just kind of start to like create a culture within your home. Because I think it is really important when you have that many people in a home to kind of think about like, okay, what's going to be the culture of this home? Am I going to go more like elderly, or am I just going to do a mix? Or
no, I didn't even think about that. That makes sense.
You get to decide on that. We only allow single individuals, no pets unless they're service animals, no kids, and no couples. Now, a couple can rent 2 separate rooms. They just can't be in one single room together.
Okay.
So that's part of kind of like the member management side of things that we do. But a really big one is payment collection. So they pay through our platform. They get to choose whether they pay weekly or bi-weekly. And then as the host, you get paid on a monthly basis at the beginning of the month for all earnings from the previous month. So it's the earnings minus our platform fee of 14.75%. And look, here's the thing, dude. Shared housing is nothing new, right? I mean, it's been going on for a very long time. But what PadSplit does and how it changes the game is that it allows you to do it at scale. It allows you to do it efficiently. Just as short-term rentals and vacation rentals were nothing new before Airbnb came in, but they came in and they created a system. They created a platform. And that's what we're doing here at PadSplit is we've now created this platform that works. And we have operators going upwards of 20, 30, 40 properties, each having 6, 7, 8 bedrooms. That would never, ever, ever be possible. I mean, it would be very difficult to do it on your own without the platform.
Wow. That's awesome. And I think that that's a huge value add because I just remember like you just said, right? Renting properties out by the room, co-living, that's not anything new, right? But having the knowledge and the ability to go rent out houses by the room, all the responsibility falls on you, right? As before PadSplit. And then I feel like the biggest thing preventing people from renting out properties by the room is people management.
Yes.
Right. It's like, dude, I would love to get freaking, $350, $400 per room a month, but I don't want to deal with, what if this tenant says this to this tenant and then they start arguing and like, I don't want to deal with all that.
Oh my gosh.
And so I feel like allowing or your platform allowing investors to be like, hey, I don't want to deal with that. I can always deal with the property management side, right? I can do some maintenance stuff. Sure. I can do that stuff. But as far as dealing with people,
and you don't even have to do the property management. If you want to be a completely hands-off investor, there's property management companies that are charging on average about 8% on all revenue collected for that property management. And so that's an option that you have. And that then, and Ray had shared this in a podcast that he was on, but that allows you then as an investor to be able to focus in on growing your business. You don't have to worry about the day-to-day operations. You got that outsourced. We have local partners who can help with that. But it really just allows you to be able to scale and grow. And
so they're charging 8%.
8%, correct. Yeah. And one thing we recommend is having like a monthly clean. And most of the property managers are going to have an additional charge for that. On average, it's going to be about $60 to $70 per clean. But the reason that's recommended is because one, you're going to get eyes on the property. You're going to get somebody to come and take a look, see how things are. But it's also going to go back to that member experience. If member sees in a description that, hey, this property includes a monthly or a bi-weekly clean, they're probably more likely to book that.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's
especially us single dudes for renting out the freaking, right? It's like, I would love a monthly clean. That's awesome.
Tell you, man. Yeah, it's a great benefit.
Yeah,
it's a great benefit for them. And I've even heard of some hosts doing like, if nobody breaks any of the house rules for a whole month, they award them with a pizza party.
Oh, that's
at the end of the month. Little things like that, just to know that, like, they know that somebody actually cares and, is going that extra mile. Those little things make a difference. And we're still very early on in this, man. I think for people who are listening in, who are watching this, who are, know about PadSplit, you are like catching that wave before it turns into a tsunami.
I agree.
And what we're going to start to see, obviously, as more people come into the marketplace and more investors start to go live, is I think there's going to be now, we're going to start seeing hosts getting more creative to stand out. Just as we saw that in Airbnb, kind of in that 2011, 2012 era, where, okay, now I got to start differentiating myself. What am I going to start doing? Because ultimately, this is your business. We are simply your platform.
Right.
Yeah.
My goal is to have a PadSplit full of real estate entrepreneurs.
You know what? I like that, man.
Yeah.
Just like a
eventually
mastermind and a PadSplit.
But keep them coming in. So let's say I'm an Airbnb investor, right? Who owns a couple of short-term rentals, and I'm not exactly too thrilled with some of the numbers that I'm getting in. A lot of the reason is because there was a wave of people buying those non-experience homes, right? And so before, all houses performed great, right, on the short-term rental side. And then now we're seeing kind of a shift in the short-term rental space of, you got to have more of a vacation style home.
Yes.
Right.
An experience.
Make it more of an experience. And so let's say someone has a short-term rental. They're thinking about PadSplit. What would be your process? What would be your mindset of how should an investor approach PadSplit on converting a short-term rental to a PadSplit?
So before I answer that, one thing that I want to touch on this topic versus like short-term rental Airbnb versus PadSplit, because I've had this come up in my day-to-day conversation with investors. Like, they ask me, well, why wouldn't I just want to rent my rooms on Airbnb? I'm already like a super host there, and just do it by the room there instead of PadSplit. And that's like, trying to go build furniture by your hand with a screwdriver instead of a professional drill. It can do it, but it's not made for that.
Right.
You don't have that member management. Their platform is not designed for room rentals in that way. And that's where PadSplit can really be a great solution. And another thing is like the checks as well. All Airbnb does is identity verification. They don't do a background check. They don't do an income verification. They don't do the eviction report.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about if you're considering, well, I'm just going to list an Airbnb. Well, let's kind of take it a step back. Let's understand like the benefits of going with PadSplit. But to answer your question, I think ultimately it comes down to the numbers. Hey, what are you earning now? And then also the property itself and the location. Is this in a desirable area for workforce housing? What are current or existing PadSplit homes or rooms going there for? And taking a look at, what your potential earnings are. And then comparing the two. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, it all comes down to the numbers. And again, I'm going to go back to it, but PadSplit.com, under the for host section and resources, we have our earnings calculator. We have that zip code map. In our Facebook group that we have, PadSplit Jacksonville, I have a tutorial video that I created that shows you how you can run that yourself. But if you have any challenges, please, I'd love for you to reach out to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And let's work together and let's see what we can make happen. Because as we talked about, you're 3/4 of the way there with you. So if you already have a short-term rental, so then it's just a matter of seeing where we can add that space.
So as far as identifying if it would be good for workforce houses, is that more of a location based?
Yeah.
Is that where you would figure that out? Okay.
It is location based. Yeah.
And what are some of we're local, right? So what
Mhm.
are some of the best Jacksonville? Do you have any data on that? Any numbers on like? Obviously, we know 32246 is 100% occupied right now,
So
right? But
another one
is
that
there any like sweet spots on like, dude, if you get something in this area, like it's gonna get booked out like that?
yeah. So one thing I also want to mention is like because we are a tech company, we have like probably billions of points of data by this point, but we have
Got it.
tons of data that, if you want to look at, hey, how long does it take to get that first booking in? How long does it take to get
Mm,
to 80% fill? How long does it take to rebook a room, after somebody vacates? Like we have so much data that can be helpful in providing information. Now it's not public. You do have to work with an account executive to
yep.
gain access to that.
Yep.
But I just want to share that in case, I do have some data savvy investors who want that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have it. Um, what I'm seeing now is 32211 kind of in that Arlington area.
Okay.
It's starting to grow. And
Okay.
it's right there on the Arlington Expressway that can get easily to downtown, close to the arena as well. You have Jacksonville University there. Now, we may not necessarily target the students, but maybe the students who have a job because they have to show income,
Right.
or maybe some of the, faculty that's lower paid.
Mm,
Um, Hospitals as well, again, but we're not going for the traveling nurses. We're not going for the traveling doctors. We're going maybe for, the CNAs, the phlebotomists,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
custodial workers, like those who are still working there. And, even schools as well, right? Schools is another area as well that employs a lot of people that, may need that housing. So 32211 is an area that I really like. Currently, it has 27 active units, $173 is the average weekly rate, and the occupancy rate is 89%.
Nice.
32205, so kind of in that Riverside area is nice, but
Yeah.
it has to be west of US 17 because the acquisition cost. And going back to the acquisition
Right.
cost,
Right. Right.
if you
Doesn't
go
make
east of
sense.
it, it's just too much, man. The
Murray
numbers won't work.
Hill
It's
and all
probably
that.
better off as a short-term rental in that case. But going west, the benefit of going there in 32205 is that you're going to be able to tap into all those service workers who are working in that Riverside
Mm.
area, Avondale area, and so that's a good area right now. It currently has 30 active units, 181 average weekly rate, and 93% average occupancy
Oh
rate.
wow.
And then finally, 1.0 is another good one as well. So there we're starting to see a lot of growth. 97 active units currently, 12 in the pipeline, 12 properties. 172 average weekly room price and 82% average occupancy. Just a lot of like that. The naval bases there nearby.
Right.
There's
Right. Right.
hospitals, all kinds of great, a lot of shopping plazas as well.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, as far as I guess figuring out, is this for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I'm sure you get that a lot,
I
right?
do.
Like,
Yeah.
I have my regular rentals or whatever, right? It's like I'm not really thrilled about renting out my house by the room.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have four headaches, right? Instead of having one tenant, now I have four tenants, so now I have four headaches. What would you kind of say to that person?
So here's what I'll say. I think if you're an experienced investor, you've had at least one property that you've done. Um, I think that's a quality that's important to have. Um, if you're not risk averse, right? Somebody who's not an early adopter, it's
Mm,
probably not going to be a good fit.
yep,
Because
yep,
this is a new disruptive sort of rental strategy to cash flow. And so you have to be one who's willing to take the risk. Now, I mean, with any real estate investment, there's always going to be a risk, whether it be short-term
absolutely.
rental, long-term rental, there's always going to be that risk. It's just more so a matter of like, hey, are you willing to be one of those early adopters? And we've had plenty of early adopters here in the local Jacksonville community who have taken that leap and have had incredible success. I mean, I know last week you had Jeff Weller here.
Yeah,
He is
that's
deeply
true. Yeah,
passionate
yeah,
about PadSplit. He's a big supporter of us. He even has the PadSplit loan. So if you're
yep.
looking to, finance an already converted PadSplit or do a cash out refi, he offers a loan product for that. But a lot of other members in the community, are seeing the benefit of it. And I know you got yours coming on soon as well. So I think if you're someone who perhaps is looking for a creative way to increase your cash flow, is open, has an open mindset to trying something different,
Yep.
and has the capital to be able to do that conversion. It's not very expensive if you're just adding some indoor walls and a door frame. It's not too pricey, but I think if you're willing to do it and you're open to it and it's in the right location, you're going to see good success. Not guaranteed,
Right.
but
Right.
from what we're seeing so far in the trends in the market, this is right now the fastest growing way to be able to have that positive cash flow.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I feel like, dude, you guys are so untapped. when I went to, because I'm in a mastermind with, not saying that I'm one of these guys, but some of the people in my mastermind are like top dogs, right? And if I go to them and I'm like, hey, ever heard of Airbnb? It's like, yeah, obviously, right? Short-term rentals, yeah. And then you go to somebody who's like crushing it, multiple people in a room where we're all just like studs in our markets. And then nobody knows what PadSplit is. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
That blows my mind, man. Yeah, just considering how well known it is here in Jacksonville. I guess we kind of live in this PadSplit bubble here in Jacksonville.
And so it just that's really when I realized, I was like, okay, they're onto something, because usually it's not this big and still other people haven't heard of it. Right. Usually if other people haven't heard of it, it's because nobody even locally has heard of it. And it's still kind of small. But if it's like it's completely taking over Jacksonville, I feel
it is.
And I kind of want to get into the stats, because I feel like everybody who saw the rush of short-term rentals immediately jumped in. And now we're all, not all of us, right? But I'll throw my name in there. It's like, shit, maybe I shouldn't have bought this one as a short-term rental, right? Like it did great when that when they were crushing it,
sure,
and now it's not as hot. And so everybody kind of has that, at least locally, right? Has that. Let me
be a little cautious,
right? Because I don't want the same thing where I was like, oh, I was making this, or I was expecting to make this, and I bought all this furniture, did all this work to this house, and now I'm not making it.
Well, look, man, you can't spell change without G and E, man. So you got to be able to adapt to change, man, and be open to it. And I think even as an investor, right, it's like you have to be open and flexible at change. Like if you're Airbnb struggling, what are your two options, right? You can sell it, right? Liquidate it, get rid of it, maybe even have to take a loss at that, or you pivot and you keep that property and you convert it into a PadSplit, and you just take a different strategy with it. And again, the markets are always changing with interest rates and supply in our inventory. And so if you're one who believes, well, I've always done it this way and it's always going to work, you could miss out. And I'm not telling you now to get this shiny object syndrome and just go after whatever you need, but we're starting to see a lot of, real estate investing firms are pivoting. We have, local here, Yellowbird, they're pivoting. You're pivoting. We're all pivoting, and it's about adapting to that change and being open to it. And as you know, I teach yoga as well, and I love, big fan of meditation. I think meditation is one of the drivers to being able to look at situations and things differently. You kind of take that step back and see, hey, am I just doing this because my ego is telling me like, no, this is the right way and this is the only way, or maybe I can just stay open and look at this differently. There's another solution, because every problem, man, can be an opportunity, but it's just about your perspective. And your perspective starts here, the way you think and what you see.
No, I love that. And it's so true, because I feel like we, even in just the mindset of just like, because when I asked you, like, how would you talk to somebody who's asking, like, is this for me? And one of the things that you brought up was, are you risk adverse? Right. And like, I didn't even think about that, but that's so true, because like, and sometimes like not being risk adverse is ego. And like, I've always done it this way. I know it's not going to fail. And if this could fail, then I could fail. And I don't want to do that, because that's going to hurt my ego. So I'm not going to,
and it's
try this PadSplit model.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy.
It is.
And so I do think that, now I want to try PadSplit.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Join the wave, man. I mean, here's one thing I will say. That very first PadSplit, hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. Because what I like to say, it's kind of like when you're making your first pancake. That first pancake, you're probably going to screw it up. You're probably going to mess it up, and it's okay, because you know what you learn from it. I mean, Jeff talked about last week how like every mistake he could have made, he made it in his first PadSplit. But guess what? He learned from those mistakes and he got better. Not only did he learn, we learned as well with it in the process. And so we're constantly evolving as well. So I think don't let fear hold you back. I like to call, there's an acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real, right? You are creating that fear. And if you go in there with an open mind and you go in there with a goal, a set timeline that you're going to get this completed, and you have a guide like myself or another account executive part of the team that's guiding you throughout the process. And when you do run into those problems, hey, I probably, you're probably not the first person to deal with it. I've probably dealt with somebody else. Let me get you a solution for that. But just having that active line of communication when those problems do arise to be able to, resort to somebody. So I think there's a lot of potential here. I love how you keep emphasizing it's untapped, it's untapped, it's untapped. And, even though we've had now Pace Morby, get on board and, share a lot of content and get his sub-2 community, I think there's still so much more potential here. We're far from saturation. Sometimes I get that question, we're far from it, even on a national level, but here just in Jacksonville, talk about 344,000 people who need that housing that fall within our target market. And we only have 711 units, man.
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy.
We are in the
and
early
I also
stages.
feel like there's the investor host side of catching on, but there's also the user, the
100%,
the consumer who has to catch on, right? Like in the beginning, people didn't know to check on Airbnb. You know what I mean? Like it took a while for the average person. Now I get to the point where like my parents are checking Airbnbs, right? It's like it took, like I think of my parents.
That's kind of like the gauge. Like if the parents know about it, okay, then most people know about
it. Everybody's freaking right.
I love that.
And so I think of like there's probably, you mentioned like 344,000 people.
Yeah.
That are your target audience. How many of those people don't even know that PadSplit exists?
Like the large majority.
Yeah. And so like they don't even know it's an option.
Yeah.
And so they're like struggling, trying to figure out like, man, I can't afford rent. I got to stay here. I got to stay with my roommates, blah, 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 blah. And they don't even know it's an option. Like, investors are quick to spread the word, but on the consumer side, like once that takes off even more.
Oh my gosh.
Right. It's like, it'll just become a normal thing. We're like, yeah, I'm in a PadSplit. Like,
well, see, so I'm originally from Croatia and I was just there this past summer. And when I was telling them about what we're doing at PadSplit, they're like, that's a business. We've been doing this here for decades. Yeah. Like everybody's living together here, man. Like we all live together. Nobody really has their own place in Europe. And I think it also comes down to like the cultural norms here in the US. It's always been like, hey, you live with your parents, go to 18, go to college, and then you're on your own. You live on your own.
Right.
But we're getting to a point where, hey, inflation is rising. Wages aren't keeping up with it. It's making it more and harder to, attain that housing.
Yeah.
And PadSplit now is that option for people who, are looking maybe to spend a little bit less on their housing bill and still have a quality place that includes their rent, that includes their utilities, that includes their Wi-Fi and all those additional benefits. And to your point, I mean, last time I checked, I think we have about 368 or so people who have completed our application. They paid our application fee and have been approved to rent a room. It's like 300 or something people versus like, the 300,000 people that are there. And so the more awareness we get out there and the more, partnerships we grow with organizations and companies and everything, I think we're going to just blossom and grow beyond just a national level, but maybe hopefully one day be like Airbnb on an international level, because it is truly a platform. And, right now we're, just trying to focus in on those core markets where we're going to experience the greatest amount of growth. I mean, we are Series B tech company. We're on track. We're focused on getting to profitability by next year. We're funded by Mark Cuban, Cox Enterprises, Citibank, a couple other institutional investors. So we have to be very intentional and targeted about which markets we're getting into. That's why we're not fully available everywhere. I mean, we do have this option called PadSplit Anywhere, where if you are outside of our core markets, you can still leverage the platform and what we have. The only thing you're not going to get is that paid advertising, which is huge. I mean, that does make a big difference because that's what's driving the demand. So what I'm seeing is those people who are outside of our core markets, they're doing their own marketing. They're taking their listings and they're going to go ahead and post it in Facebook groups. They may go out to some of the local employers, print out some flyers or something and go do out there. So there is more of that sweat equity you have to put in if you are outside of a core market.
Right. Something that I just thought about is some people maybe that aren't in those areas where PadSplit is at, they've maybe already been renting out by the room.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, dude, I can't find a property manager who's going to manage all these people. I would love a platform where like I know how to find these people. I've been doing it for years. Right. Like I talk to the local colleges, I talk to all this, but I don't have a platform where people can just go. And so like somebody like that who already has the finding the people.
Such a good point.
Right. But they just need that interface CRM of being able to track everything, manage people, all that.
So true.
Could also be a huge benefit.
Oh my gosh. I never really even thought of it that way, but it's such a good point because it kind of goes back to optimizing their experience as a host.
Correct.
Being able to leverage all those parts that we have, those tools that make it easier for them to do what they need to do. And then from there, they can scale.
Right.
They can grow.
Right.
That's
and
the
that's
key thing
probably
is
what's
scaling.
keeping them from scaling.
Yes.
I have to manage all these people. I have to deal with these people management and all this.
Exactly, man.
So yeah, so I that's why I just feel like, man, when I walk into a room full of the hottest, biggest real estate investors, and they have no idea what you guys are, I'm just like, holy shit!
You're just like, let me tell you, man. You start rubbing the hands.
I'm like, dude, this is insane.
The plug for PadSplit right here, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is what's in the horizon for PadSplit? Like, can you get into some of the things that maybe people don't know about that PadSplit's working on, right? Or like, what are some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, so big growth, always in the big growth, big focus on that. We have a couple new core markets that we're working on.
Okay. I know you mentioned earlier, like Raleigh, you said.
Yep, Raleigh's going to be going live soon. Was actually,
do you know all the markets that you guys are active in? So
I don't trust my memory enough to go off of all of them, but I can certainly pull that up here. But I know, okay, so Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Baltimore, Kansas City, Raleigh, Charlotte, I think Indianapolis, and then there's, I feel like one more. Phoenix is another big one as well out in the West. Phoenix is a core market. I think that's all of them. But yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to expand that.
That's crazy. And so when I see that, it's like, dude, that's like 15 markets.
Yeah, that's just about
that's nothing. Yeah, compared to what's out there, right? Like all of the major markets in Texas, all of the major markets, and like in all
California too. We have so our chief growth officer Adam Kolicek, he went out there and to do just a presentation on PadSplit, and it was investor only.
I think we had him on the show.
Oh, did you?
Or who did we have on from PadSplit, Mike? Do you remember?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Adam KK. So he's the man. Yeah. So he's our chief growth officer.
Yes, him.
And he did an event in LA and it was just so much excitement there. Now, obviously we have to work with cities and zoning just to make sure that we can operate compliantly. Nobody's going to get shut down. Excuse me. So that's a really big part of it as well. But I'd say just, another benefit of signing up with that host account, even if you're not ready to host, but you're going to get those email updates. So as we go live in new markets, you're going to be notified. And, if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to one of the account executives to work with.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, dude, I feel like one of the biggest things that I learned that is going to help the consumer, right? The customer, the client is all of the other things that you just mentioned, man. Like one of the biggest things is like, man, I've been paying rent and that's not showing up on my credit.
Yeah.
So the fact that you guys already have that, like you're already thinking beyond of how do we attract more people? It's like, let's do all these things.
Exactly. And there's more to it. So they also have access to interest-free hardship microloans. So let's say they face some hard times, they can provide some documentation and prove it. We have a partnership with the provider who can get them that interest-free microloan and get them back on track.
Oh, that's awesome.
We talked about the telemedicine services provided through Teladoc, the job matching services as well. And, in that survey that we did, because sometimes I get the question was like, well, do that many people really want to live together and in one place? Is it really a good experience? In that survey, 91% of people would recommend PadSplit to a friend. 91%, man. That's pretty much almost everyone. And one of the favorite things that they really enjoyed the most about PadSplit was the flexible lease terms and the cost savings. On average, they were saving about $330-ish, $350-ish compared to, other rental options that were available.
Right.
And, for those who are making that, with their, 20 to 50K, that makes a huge difference, man, 100%. For them, right? In their budget. And it's just allowing them to grow in the community, be able to advance in their life. And like, personally, man, I'm so passionate about this because, I benefited from like PadSplit wasn't a thing when I faced my challenges early on in my adult life. At 18 years old, I had no family here. I had no money. I had nothing. And I was, fortunate enough to be able to have a girlfriend at the time where, we basically lived in a 3-bedroom place. We had like 10 people in that home at one point. And it wasn't even split up. Like people were sleeping on the bedroom in the living room. Like it was a struggle, man. But we were doing PadSplit before PadSplit was even cool, man. But and so like I've been through that experience, and I think there's a lot of people out there who just don't know and don't have that option available. And now PadSplit is opening up those doors. And our logo here is 2 keys. And so the key has always been a symbol of opportunity. And that's what we're doing here at PadSplit, is giving people the opportunity to have housing, to be able to, live in a place. And that's not relying upon government subsidies. We've taken 0 government subsidies. That's why I prefer to call it attainable housing over affordable housing, because when you say affordable housing, immediately people go into Section 8, all this. We haven't taken any money from any governments. It's over $1 billion that we've saved governments in subsidies with the amount of people that we've housed. That's big, man.
I'm a big believer in it, because I learned from people that are smarter than me.
Love that approach.
Some of the people that I listen to have always seen that the housing real estate industry in other countries, Europe, are always we're always a step behind. Right. And one of the things that you see in Europe right now is homeownership is very limited.
Very low.
Right.
Yeah. Most usually past generational.
Exactly. Most people can't afford to buy houses. Houses don't sell. Right. People just keep houses and just keep passing them down, because to go buy a house, good luck. Right. And so if you are a believer of that, we are slowly becoming a nation of renters. Slowly but surely.
Big time.
Right. I feel like my generation and future generations don't even believe in home ownership. Right. Some of them. Right. And so if we keep going down this path, then the only options are either moving in with roommates, or living with your parents. Those are the 2 options. Right. And so I feel like most people are not going to want to live with their parents. But when you move in with roommates, someone has to someone has to spearhead that.
Sure.
Right. Like somebody has to say, I'm going to get the lease. I'm going to get my buddies together. Right. Like
it's a lot of work.
It's right. It's not like normal. Right. And then over time, people are going to go for the cheaper options of living. And if you can't always rely on your buddy to spearhead that, let's all rent a single family home together. How are we going to qualify? Because even if you go that route, it still brings up the challenges that you brought up, where they have to come up with last month's rent, first month's rent.
All the startup expenses. That.
Even if they're just going to all rent it out by the room, it still requires all that. And so just thinking, 10, 15, 20 years ahead. I feel like PadSplit would just become a normal thing. And whether it's PadSplit, whether it's other platforms, right, in the future, it'll just be like co-living will become normal.
Correct.
And right now it's kind of normal, but it's only normal if it's available. And like I said, most people took my parents 10 years to figure out, I can also check hotels, but I can also check Airbnb, right? And then in that 5-10 years from now, whenever you're thinking about graduating from college or graduating from high school, where am I going to rent? Immediately, the first thing is, let me check some PadSplits, see what's available, right? Like it'll just become
the norm.
Correct. It'll just become the norm, right? And then I'm just thinking of like how crazy PadSplits will get, right? Because once it becomes normal, now it becomes like, all right, my PadSplit has to be the coolest, right? Like I got the mini fridges in all the rooms, and I do. What about pools? Like community things? Like is that like, let's stay away from that. We don't want conflict. How does that work?
Here's the thing about pools. It's kind of an unknown area for us here at PadSplit. We have, I think, 1 or 2 hosts to all of Florida who are now going to start going to go live with them. The concern we have with pools is that it promotes gatherings. So that's something we want to avoid. It's also a greater liability for the investor. If something happens, right? There's more chance something happen with that many people there. And also the cost. I mean, just the maintenance of that and maintaining that. So, for right now, I don't think we're at a point where, that is going to make a huge difference, or, I would recommend it. I would actually probably advise against it.
Yeah.
Just, find a traditional single family home. But to your point, as our platform grows, as, more hosts come on board, that may be a differentiating factor, but I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
I think we're far from that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep bringing up that it's untapped, right? Like I feel like the only people right now, and this is just from my knowledge, right? And I know nothing, but the only people, or majority of the people that know PadSplit are like the host side right now. I feel like consumers still haven't, and this is just my opinion. I feel like consumers, it's not a thing yet with consumers.
And that's something we're always going to be having, that balance between the supply of the homes coming on board from investors and the demand. And we're constantly looking at creative ways through marketing, through partnerships, on how we can make sure we're always sustaining that consistent demand to where we're always having that 90% occupancy. And like kind of bringing back to like short-term rentals and stuff like that. I mean, that's, those are people who have the disposable income. That's more of a luxury. Whereas this is truly a need. Like, this is something that the marketplace needs. And I think there's always going to be a place for some of the government funded programs, but this is just another kind of tool in the toolbox to help us get to that ideal state in housing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm not trying to say that as a negative thing.
Yeah, sure.
I'm trying to say that as like an optimistic thing.
100%. Yeah.
As like, I love that it's untapped. It's not a known thing, because the fact that you guys are in, you mentioned maybe 15 markets, right? And I see the future of, I'm just going to do co-living.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it'll just become a thing. I'm just going to do co-living. I'm just going to do there's a lot of people doing it right now.
And there's
it's
so
unstructured
to it, man. I mean, I think you get to meet new people, new experiences.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, I started my room rental journey by helping a family member who was in need. So like, it was one extra bedroom that she had. I told her, hey, like, let's get this rented for you just to help make ends meet. And through doing that, not only, again, she received more income, but also was able to meet new people. She had gone on traveling experiences and made new friends. And I think there's that social aspect of it as well, where you then begin to expand, members get to expand their connections and their opportunities organically just through staying at a PadSplit.
Right. And I'm just thinking of like Silicon Valley.
Yes,
right?
man.
Like Silicon Valley, like, we all just want to rent the same PadSplits so that we can all live, move in with each other.
I love
We're
it.
all tech guys, and then we go to work, and like, I just feel like it's definitely the way.
And there's some existing players in that space that are targeting that niche already, I'll say. Right. I think the greater need, because most people who are making that kind of money,
that's true.
They're probably going to want to get their own place.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to split with that many people. But where I can see this maybe is like through mergers and acquisitions, right? As PadSplit starts growing, maybe we see some strategic acquisitions where it's going to make sense for us to tap into those markets.
Yep.
But right now, our focus area really is workforce.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what are you most excited about in your journey in PadSplit?
Well, I think it's just going back to the growth, man. I think there is so much potential here, and I'm excited to see how this ecosystem and this community evolves, because as we grow as a company with PadSplit, contractors are growing, lenders are growing, people in the insurance, like everybody else who's involved in part of it. We're kind of like this big whale, and then you have the remoras, who are tagging along. There's the fish that are helping to kind of clean the whales. Those are other companies, other businesses that are going to be growing. And I think there's still also so much untapped potential with other like software providers. Like, when Airbnb came out of market, a lot of people were just self-managing through the platform. But then as it evolved, we started to see all these property management softwares come out, like Guesty, Hospitable, Hostfully, and then dynamic pricing as well to like advance your pricing. And so all these additional tech companies started coming out of the change that Airbnb created.
Right.
And so I think as we continue to accelerate and move forward in our growth, I'm really stoked to see how these other, tech providers and tech companies can, grow with us, and
Yeah.
other vendors as well. And, if you're someone who, is local here to Jacksonville, and, you're involved in as a vendor in the real estate industry in some way, and if you see businesses slowing down, going back to that point of change, maybe like, hey, let's change and pivot into PadSplit, and be a part of
Agreed.
this growth
Yeah.
as well, if you're open to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I just think of like people who have like Airbnb cleaning companies.
Yes.
Right. And they're like, hey, PadSplit's doing monthly cleanings now, or let me target some of those, and I can do some short-term rental cleanings. I can do some PadSplit cleanings, right? Like just tapping into that.
Exactly. I mean, I personally, I love Turno.com. I don't know if you ever heard of Turno, but they're like the nation's leading marketplace for house cleaners, and it's also a cleaning management tool. And so like my vision is like seeing like, hey, how Turno, Turno.com. I personally utilize it with some of the short-term rentals and medium-term rentals that I have with a partner, and it's been a game changer because it's really nice about Turno is like when that booking comes in, automatically notifies the cleaner on the checkout date, and then they can accept it. They take photos. You can also set like a cleaning checklist, set instructions. Like, it is an incredible platform that I absolutely love. And my vision is to like, hey, how can we maybe integrate that with PadSplit? So when, a move out is initiated with, by a member, it automatically is routed through Turno, goes to the cleaner. They're notified to go on this date at this time to complete the cleaning, these checklist items, and then notify the host when that's completed. So, and then that's just one example of like this another tech provider that can kind of feed off our growth that we're having. We're not there yet with Turno. We don't have the integrations, but I have a vision. I can see it maybe at some point, and beyond just that. I mean, that's what I'm most excited about. But that's enough about what I'm excited about, man. I mean, what are you most excited about, being a part of this and joining in early on this wave?
Yeah. So I think what I'm more excited about is proof of concept.
Okay.
Right. Like, I think that's always the thing for me is in the immediate, right. In the immediate, I guess, immediate gratification, right. Like, just getting that proof of concept of, okay, this does work. Right. Because I keep hearing great things. I haven't pulled the trigger. Like we were talking, I keep going back and forth on pulling the trigger.
What's holding you back, man?
I know the ones that are probably already en route. You mentioned 32205 past the expensive areas. That's where I got one. Then you mentioned 32210.
Just saying, man.
Like, dude, that's where I got. That's where I got the other one that I'm thinking. So honestly, right now, I would say is what I'm most excited about is getting started with one and getting that proof of concept, right? And as someone who's risk friendly and understands the knowledge or the power of learning, right? Like, maybe my first one isn't going to be the best.
Sure.
Probably will be, because I'm going to call you. You're going to help me do it perfect, right?
You've had a chance to talk with a lot of people already. You've given me some good tips. So
definitely need to buy some mini fridges for all the rooms.
Yeah.
That was, Jeff mentioned that. Now you're mentioning that. So that's definitely a trend. And so I think that's what I'm most excited about. But I'm also most excited about, something that I've been working with a couple people on the side is the marketplace. And I feel like, that's something that we maybe didn't discuss enough about, but it's creating that, as a investor on the back end, right, of the marketplace that PadSplit is creating, right, as we speak.
And even for wholesalers like yourself, and it's like now being able to sell more deals because now there's this opportunity for PadSplit. And I think there's just one example. There's so many examples of that. And while we're just quickly on this point, sometimes I get asked, well, hey, what if I want to sell my PadSplit? Like, it's already been converted. What can I do? I've spent all this money putting the walls up. The nice thing about PadSplit is that we do have an integrated PadSplit marketplace where you can list your property and the details of it. And what's great is that it includes like which rooms are occupied, which rooms are vacant, and people who are interested can see the historical cash flow on it. So it's already all built within the platform, and that's an option that's available in case you want to. Now, most people are not because they are cash flowing, but you never know. Life hits. Maybe you want to change your strategy, do something different. You have that exit strategy from a PadSplit if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, dude, you've been an open book.
Always am, man. I'm nothing but truth and openness, and I love I truly do have a passion for helping and empowering others on the journey. Every year I set an intention for the year. And this year was empowerment. And when I set an intention, I more use it more as like a guiding principle. I don't necessarily set myself to any particular goals. In 2021, it was transformation. And then I, lost over 40 pounds, got to the healthiest point of my life. And then, last year was passion. I decided to go from corporate healthcare with GE Healthcare, where I had a very successful career in corporate sales, and decided to jump into real estate and, pursue the passion there, and in yoga as well, meditation. And now this year it's empowerment. And, our mission here at PadSplit is to leverage housing as a vehicle for financial empowerment to solve for the affordable housing crisis one room at a time. So I think it kind of goes to show the power of setting an intention and the transformation it can set in your life. So I think the best is yet to come at PadSplit. We've experienced a lot of great growth, but I think there's even greater growth ahead.
I agree. So if anybody who's watching wants to be a part of it, wants to find out more, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So I am on Instagram as Big REI Growth. You can find me there on Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's Emanuel Premate. Facebook, Emanuel Premate as well. And on the topic of Facebook, we do have a local Facebook community specifically for PadSplit in Jacksonville. If you just type PadSplit Jacksonville, you can find us there. There I'm posting educational content. I'm posting, we're sharing, tips, best practices, events as well. So on the topic of events, we were supposed to have our PadSplit conversion panel event this
had the
Thursday.
Babysitter set up and everything.
Dude, listen to this. So we started marketing that for that last week. It was on Tuesday. Within 24 hours, all 75 tickets got booked up. So there I am at the end of the week. I'm like scrambling. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm start looking for a new venue. I find the new venue, which by the way, it's going to be at 102 6th Avenue North, Jacksonville Beach. It's typically where Yellowbird holds their events.
Nice.
So that big building there, that's where we're going to do it. Capacity's up to 225. So in a way, so then I was scrambling to put that together. And then like Monday, I look at the news and stuff, and like there's a whole hurricane coming. So I'm like, oh my God, now I have to change the date. Dude. But we're all good, man. So we are set for that on September 14th at 6 p.m. At 102 6th Avenue North, Jacksonville Beach. It's going to be the PadSplit conversion panel event. Yes. So we are going to talk all about the conversion process, talk about what to look for when you're evaluating properties. What are some things to keep in mind throughout the conversion process? And you're just going to be able to hear from vendors who have experience working with hosts. Some are even hosts. So our panelists consist of Adam Locklear. He runs Locklear Partners in Property Management here in Jacksonville. He's in the process of, becoming a PadSplit host in the final stages here. Maria Lazo as well, board member of the Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association, has experience as a project manager and as a PadSplit host. Now I think going on to her second or third property. Yep. And then we have Brian Hettinger from Recromax. So Recromax is a licensed general contractor company that there's a part of our vendor network. So he's going to speak regarding some of the projects that they've done. He has 20 plus years experience as a licensed GC. So it's going to be awesome to kind of tap into his knowledge and experience. And then we also have Jeff Adams from Lesson. So Lesson is like a technology driven construction company, contracting company. Nice. That is nationwide, and they're really focused on efficiently and effectively completing projects through tech that they have, proprietary access to. So
that's awesome.
Very exciting event. It's one of our biggest here that we've done, even as a nation, one of the biggest private events that we've done.
I was in Orlando last week speaking at the RIA. Yeah. And one of the sponsors is the construction company that's going to be speaking at that.
Recromax?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Let's
so
go.
I was like, dude, small world. They're like, yeah, we're actually going to be up in Jax speaking at this event. So it's a huge event.
Amazing. Yeah, no, we're very excited about it. We're supposed to have a really good turnout. So if you're in any way involved in real estate in Jacksonville, come out, connect with others, get to learn more about PadSplit, and, do well, do good, man.
Yeah. No,
That's
I
what
love
it's
it.
all about.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, dude, thank you so much for this, taking up more than an hour of your time. But
it's been an honor, man.
I appreciate you sharing, and hopefully this will bring a lot of value to our listeners, to our viewers.
Yes.
We want the growth of PadSplit.
We love the support, man. We always appreciate it.
I love it. So everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in. If you tuned in late, or maybe you need to rewatch this is going to be on my YouTube channel called the Cash Geeks Network, or you can rewatch this on my Facebook page. Just add me, Gonzalo Corzo. And E, thank you so much, man.
Dude, G, you are the man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate
I love
you. And anything I can help you or your community grow, let me know. I'm happy to do so, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, I'm G, and I'm